I will call to order the Monday, August 25th meeting of the Verona Common Council. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Next, we'll have the roll call. Ms. Schofield, if you would, please.
Alderperson Diaz.
Here.
Alderperson Doyle.
Here.
Alderperson Linder.
Here.
Alderperson McGilvery.
Here.
Alderperson Reekie.
Here.
Alderperson Steiner.
Here.
Alderperson Touche.
Present.
And Alderperson Years.
Here. We have everyone present this evening. Thank you for that. Next, we will move to public comment. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak this evening, we do have a sign-up sheet at the podium. If you would please sign that, and also for our benefit and those watching at home, if you would please state your name and address as well.
Yes. Hello, my name is Tim Hagan. I live at 143 Pioli Street in the city here. I've spent about 42 of my 44 years in Verona. My family, my wife and 3 kids, we're proud to call Verona home. With that, I'd also like to say thank you for your service. Some tough decisions that you guys have to make, so thank you. The main reason I'm here tonight is to talk about the Verona Fire Department. I'm sure as everyone that drove through here, they started construction on the fire department. I used to go down there many, many years ago. I've been involved with the fire service probably 20 plus years. I went down there when my dad was a volunteer. I'd go down there and spend some time down there. My main concern is with staffing. So we're going to have this very nice $10 million fire station. Some might call it the Taj Mahal. That's what I call it. But the fire station does not put out fires. The fire station is not going to answer the call at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to help an asthmatic trying to breathe at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm well aware of the hours of that the fire station is staffed right now, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But I'm going to challenge you guys. Are we going to be able to staff this when the keys are turned over to you? So when you have a brand new fire station, are we going to be able to staff it 24 hours a day? Not with one person, not with 2 people, but with a fully functional engine. That means 4 people. And I'm not saying to hire 4 full-time staff 24 hours a day. There's other creative staffing that can be done. There's intern programs. There's paid on-call people that I think there's 11 to 14 people that are more than trained to staff that. So I'm challenging you to find a way, find some money. I know the capital budget took a big hit with that, but the operating budget, find money in the operating budget to keep that fire station staffed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Mr. Steiner.
Brad Steiner, 201 Knoll Way. I would like to congratulate our public library and the friends of the library for an outstanding summer. At the beginning, we had 2,197 young readers that went through our summer program with our staff guiding them at our library. An outstanding summer. Then the Friends and a few other economic groups from the city brought in a wonderful tour. It's called the Wisconsin History Tour. Last week, the library was packed. During the day with people curious, at night with people who wanted to relive their history or a part of their life. I enjoyed 2 of the sessions. One of them was farming in Wisconsin. A guy named Jerry Apps was the main speaker. Had us rolling in the aisle with histories of what it was like to be a farm family in Wisconsin 70, 80 years ago. And the other one was more or less something I've enjoyed with my family touring around Wisconsin. It's called Wisconsin Lighthouses. 48 of them in the state of Wisconsin. And the couple that presented that did an awesome job. I mean, it's really neat to have these people come into our little city and doing this. There were 16 other programs that unfortunately I could not participate in, but heard back from several friends from the Historical Society that made every one of them. They said it was worth every ounce of energy they had. So I want to thank the friends of the library and of course our wonderful staff at the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Other public comment this evening? Not seeing anyone rush up to the podium. Seeing no one else, we will move on. Included with your packets are the minutes of the August 11th meeting of the Common Council. What is your pleasure?
Move approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Reekie. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried and the minutes are approved. Under Mayor's business this evening, I'm going to make it very short. Mr. Steiner mentioned the Wisconsin History Tour that was at the library. We are one of a number of sites around the state of Wisconsin to be able to host this tour. If you have not seen the display, you should go over there. It's really nice. They had numerous donations. One was from the Kohler Company. That it's not a cheaply built design or setup. It's really, really nice. So if you have an opportunity to get to the library, take a look at that. They call it their partners meeting, and it was members of the Verona Public Library, the Dane County Historical Society, and the Verona Historical Society were there. So it was just a great event, and I know that there was a speaker following that event, and we would strongly encourage not only the council but other residents of the city to go as well. So that concludes my report for this evening. We will move to the administrator's report. Mr. Burns, please.
Yes, just a brief update this evening. First of all, as we had discussed at a previous meeting, the city is accepting letters of interest for the lease of the old library facility at 130 North Franklin Street. The Sugar River United Methodist Church that has been in there is looking to leave that to move to their new location at the end of this month. So the city is soliciting letters of interest. Information is on the city website and was included in the Verona Press. And if anyone is interested in that, they can contact me at City Hall, and the deadline would be for September 2nd for an initial letter of interest. Then we'll work with interested parties and be bringing this back for the City Council discussion in the month of September. Also, a couple events that are going to be coming up. One we'll be discussing this evening is the Ironman Wisconsin event, which is planned for September 7th. And then EPIC's user group meeting is planned for September for the 14th through the 18th this year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burns this evening? Not seeing any. Thank you, Bill. We will then move to the engineer's report. Mr. Gunlock, please.
Thank you. Quite a few items this evening. There's been a lot of construction going on in the city. First item is Lincoln Street reconstruction. Concrete curb and gutter is in. Crushed aggregate base course was placed. Was some damage to that today with the heavy rain. Asphalt paving was to be performed today, but the weather delayed that for several days. As soon as we do get the binder down, the street terraces will be landscaped. Several property owners are in the process of having their complete driveway replaced by others, and that work is to be completed early next week. All work on this project should be completed by September 20th. Scenic Ridge Phase 6. Here also the curb and gutter and crushed aggregate base course has been placed. Asphalt binder course will be paved as soon as the contractor can be scheduled. Following asphalt placement, sidewalks will be installed and the street terraces landscaped. All work should be completed in this subdivision by the end of September. Cathedral Point Phase 4. Northerly portion of the development has all the underground work complete. Street subgrade has been test rolled and undercut areas identified. Undercut work and placement of the crushed aggregate base course material will proceed as soon as weather conditions permit. South portion of the development has the sanitary sewer completed. Contractor is working on the water main. All work in this development should be completed by the end of October. Prairie Oaks Phase 3, asphalt binder course has been completed, and the sidewalk installation will follow very soon. At the completion of the sidewalks, again, street terraces will be restored. Work in this subdivision should be completed by the third week of September. Epic water mains, work continues on water main extensions at Epic to serve the Annex 2 and the new utility control building. Water main extensions are scheduled for completion by the end of September. And finally, Locust Drive reconstruction. The pre-construction meeting was held today for Locust Drive reconstruction south of Scenic Ridge Drive. Locust Drive south of Scenic Ridge will be closed to through traffic during construction. A marked detour route will be established that uses State Trunk Highway 69, Paoli Street and Bruce Street to detour the north and south through traffic around the construction zone. All work will be completed on Locust Drive by the middle of November. That completes my report for this evening. If there are questions, I'll try to answer them.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gunlock? Mr. Touche? Is your mic on, Evan?
Lincoln Street, what was the original scheduled completion date?
Original scheduled completion date was the 31st of August. We granted them a 5-day extension for some weather issues, and there's another change order that's pending that could add another 5 days. So that would put it September 10th.
If I remember correctly, you said it'd be done by September 20th?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, right now, it's wet now, we need to get the asphalt contractor back in there. It's gonna take a couple of days. There was some damage to the base course today, they need to come back and fix that. We're also waiting for these private driveways to be completed. We wanna put the asphalt binder course down, make sure all the driveways are completed before we put the surface course on. So if all the driveways get completed early next week, and we have the binder in, and all of the terrace work has been done, and there's only 3 to 4 feet behind the curb that has to be restored. And possibly the end of next week, they can get in there, or early the following week, and put the surface on, which would be approximately September 10th. I just basically extended out to the 20th just to give them plenty of time there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Gunlock? Seeing none, thank you, Bob.
Welcome.
We will then move to committee reports, begin with the Finance Committee. Mr. McGilvery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under item 9A1, I'll make a motion to approve payment of the monthly bills in the amount of $473,929.57.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvery. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Doyle. Mr. McGilvery?
Thank you. In the way of explanation, 3 of the larger items from this month's bills, first being to Farmers Savings Bank, which is the institution handling the Keller-Burke property. It's a municipal development revenue obligation payment that we make yearly. The amount is $105,149.49. Second being to Hammersley Stone Company for the Lincoln Street reconstruction project, $72,251.55. And lastly, again, a developer's agreement payment for 2 Sigma Aldrich. It's a TIF note payment for the 2013 tax year, $100,039.
You've heard the explanation of the major expenditures. Are there any questions for the Finance Committee or for staff? Not seeing any, so I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion for the approval of bills in amount totaling $473,929.57 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried, and the bills are approved. Mr. McGilvray?
Thank you. Under item 9A2, I'll make a motion to approve an agreement with Baker Tilly Virtual Cross LLP for audit services for the 2014, 2015, and 2016 year.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvray. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Doyle. Mr. McGilvray?
Thank you. And Baker Tilly has handled the auditing services for us from 2011 through 2013. They were originally chosen through an RFP process. They've done an excellent job. They're very credible. Under staff recommendation and the approval by the Finance Committee, we would recommend that you approve this agreement with Baker Tilly for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. McGilvray. Are there questions or comments for the committee or for staff? Not seeing any. All those in favor of the motion for the approval of audit services with Baker Tilly Virtual Cross LLP signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. McGilvray, anything else from the Finance Committee?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move then to Public Works, Sewer, and Water Committee. Mr. Touche, please.
Thank you. Under item 9B1, I would like to make a motion to approve the state/municipal agreement for a state-led local bridge project on Old Highway PB.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. Touche?
Thank you. There is a bridge over a branch of the Badger Mill Creek along Old Highway PB in the city of Verona that needs to be replaced. A new structure will be designed to current standards and have a clear width of 38 feet and length of 32 feet. The bridge will include bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. The total estimated project cost is $471,500. The project costs are funded with 80% federal and state funding and 20% City of Verona funding. This project is scheduled to be constructed in 2016. In order to proceed with this project, the City of Verona and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation need to enter in a state municipal agreement regarding the funding and conditions of the project.
Again, you've heard the explanation for the motion. Are there questions for the committee or for staff? Mr. McGilvray, please.
Just as an informational note, we also had discussion about the bridge that is just to the north of that bridge that will also be replaced during the same time frame by the town. So we'll share each in 20% cost for that.
Thank you for that additional comment. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Linder?
Could I just clarify which bridge this is? This is the one just south of Verona Road? Near the bike trail?
Yes, so the one directly south of the bike trail is actually owned by the town. So they're entering that agreement. There's one that just south of that before Forest View Drive. It's really hard to see on the map, but you'll see like a faded area of a line. Yeah. Your map is better than mine was.
Other questions for the committee or for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried, and that that agreement has been approved. Mr. Touche?
Thank you. Under item 9B2, I'd like to make a motion to approve the professional services agreement for the design services for the existing Locust Drive Bridge over Highway 18-151.
Mr. Touche, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm wondering, did you want that motion to include an amount not to exceed $60,050?
I think that sounds fantastic.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. Touche?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This agreement shall provide engineering services for the Locust Drive Bridge widening project to add an 8-foot wide pedestrian/bike lane to the east side of the bridge structure and associated approach modifications. Just for point of reference, this bridge is, in the end, will be paid for by the developers on the other side of Locust, on the other south of the bypass. The city will flip the initial part of the bill, and then the developers have 5 years to pay off their portion of the bridge.
Thank you. Mr. McGilvray?
Just one other thing for people who live there. Originally, this project was supposed to go forward in 2017, but the developer have pushed to have this done a little bit sooner, which I think the people who live there will be very happy about having it done at that time too.
Thank you. Mr. Touche?
Not to mention, it'll be cheaper for the developers to do it sooner versus later.
This is true.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the professional services agreement at a cost not to exceed $60,050. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche?
Under item 9B3, I'd like to make a motion to approve a claim for damages to a vehicle owned by Jim Latica from City Street median maintenance work.
Again, Mr. Do you want the amount in there?
I could, yeah, it can be as part of the motion, then I'll give a report.
Okay. Mr. Touche, do you want to add the dollar amount in the motion?
For the claim not to exceed $218.39.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Mr. Linder. Mr. Touche.
I'm going to actually defer to Bill for the explanation.
Mr. Burns, please.
Yeah, the city received a claim from Mr. Latica. He was driving a vehicle on East Verona Avenue on August 5th. A city employee was cutting weeds with a weed whacker in the median of East Verona Avenue. Mr. Latica had moved his truck past a parked city vehicle with lights and flashers on, but moved back into the turn lane adjacent to where the work was being done, and the side of the truck was sprayed with some gravel. The original amount of the claim was $1,398.89. However, in discussing the claim and upon reflection, Mr. Latica had agreed to use a less costly repair method, basically to just do some minor touch-up. My understanding is this was relatively minor damage to the vehicle, and the estimate for the revised work is $218.39. City staff did discuss this with the city's insurance carrier, Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance. Their recommendation is to approve the settlement of the claim for the $218.39, and that was discussed earlier this evening at the Public Works Committee, and that was the committee recommendation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Questions for staff or for the committee? Mr. Diaz?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a general comment that I had voted to recommend that the City Council accepts this claim. That was basically just based on the insurance company and staff recommendation. And I had one question for staff. If you could explain why we're seeing more of these claims than the city has perhaps seen in the past?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, the city about a year and a half ago had switched insurance carriers to go to Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company, and as part of that change, we also have accepted a higher deductible for our general liability claims. That deductible amount is now $25,000, rather than previously we were at $1,000. Essentially what the city is doing is incurring a lower premium cost, but we are agreeing to basically self-fund for minor claims that are under that deductible amount. So this claim would have been under that dollar threshold regardless with where the settlement is at the $218.39, but the city does have the potential for more claims that would be within our deductible amount, and that is perhaps part of the reason why we've seen some additional claim activity this year compared to what we've seen in prior years.
Additional questions? Mr. McIlvray?
Thank you. I just want to make it clear also, we did have discussion at the committee level about the potential for this type of thing happening again, and it's important that the public knows as well as the staff knows that they were doing the job correctly. They didn't do anything wrong, and this individual, it's my opinion, this individual, they were at fault, and I have a real issue with the idea that we should have to pick up this bill, but in light of where we started and where we will end up and the fact that we probably would spend more fighting it, I'm going to go along with it. But I do want everyone to know that the staff was doing their job and they were doing it correctly.
Thank you for that comment. Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion before you is to pay the claim in an amount not to exceed $218.39. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Mr. Touche?
Thank you. Under item 9B4, I would like to make a motion to deny the claim for damage to a property owned by Jane Betzig at 1200 Enterprise Drive from tree debris.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McGilvery. Mr. Touche?
I'm going to ask Bill again to fill in some description here.
Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Yes, the city also received a claim for damage to a condominium property owned by Jane Betzig at 1200 Enterprise Drive. The condominium siding was struck by tree debris following the tornado event on June 17th, 18th of 2014, and the claim alleges that the damage was caused by city-owned trees adjacent to the property, and therefore seeking reimbursement from the city for the damages. The city staff did review this and consulted with our insurance carrier. The recommendation from staff and the insurance company is to deny the claim. This is a result of a weather event with the tornado hitting the city. The Parks Director had also indicated that the city has maintained trees within this area. They have been in there twice within the past 18 months, and that they regularly mow in the area and did not have knowledge of any particular hazard with the trees in this area. The insurance company for Ms. Betzig did contact me and notified me that they have issued a payment under the homeowner's policy, and also that they will not be pursuing a subrogation claim against the city, recognizing that the damage was caused by the tornado event. So again, the recommendation from the insurance company staff and the Public Works Committee is to deny the claim.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Are there any additional questions or comments? Mr. Yurs?
Could I just get a clarification of what the motion was again?
To deny the claim.
Yes, the motion is to deny the claim, so an aye vote would be in favor of denial.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the motion, yeah.
Yep. We always want to make sure we're clear on what we're voting on, so good question. Any additional questions or comments? If not, the motion before you is to deny the claim by Jane Betzig. All those in favor of denial signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, is there anything else from Public Works, Sewer, and Water?
No more.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to Public Safety Committee, Public Safety and Welfare Committee. Mr. Yurs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under 9C1, I'd like to make a motion to approve an application for a special event permit for Ironman Wisconsin on Sunday, September 7th from Ryan Richards World Triathlon Corporation.
We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Touche. Mr. Yurs?
Ironman has become a fixture here in Verona every September. The course here in Verona hasn't changed a bit. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly recognize Sergeant Christensen on his work for the path of Ironman and how he's made it act like clockwork for the city, and we're prepared to deal with the challenges that it creates. With that, the Public Safety Committee voted unanimously to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Yurs. Questions for the committee or for staff? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion for approving the application for the special event permit signify by saying aye.
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 And that motion carries. Mr. Yurs, please.
Thank you. Under 9C2, I'd like to make a motion to approve an application for a temporary Class B beer license for a chili cook-off on Saturday, September 20 from Scott Krantz, Verona Optimist Club, with the contingency that we receive insurance information.
We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
Second by Ms. Reiki. Mr. Yurs?
Again, this is an event we're very familiar with here in Verona. It's always in conjunction with the open house at the fire department. We had a great event last year, and there's no concerns that we won't have a great event this year. The Public Safety Committee unanimously recommended approval.
You have heard the explanation. Questions or comments for the committee or for staff? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the application for a temporary Class B beer license for a chili cook-off on Saturday, September 20th from Scott Krantz, Verona Optimist, with the contingency that we are certain that insurance is provided. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Is there anything else from the Public Safety and Welfare Committee?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Yurs. We will move on then to old business. And item 1 under old business is discussion and possible action regarding awarding of bids for the fire and EMS facility. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Yeah, the city did rebid several items for the fire facility project where we did not have adequate coverage with bids, providing valid bid bonds, or where there were changes for the scope. In addition, we have reviewed the asphalt and concrete areas, and at this point, we have 6 items that are available for potential action. The packages for roofing and sheet metal, glazing and aluminum, gypsum board assemblies and insulation, hard tile, asphalt paving, and landscaping. And Bill Penoyer from Tri-North Construction is here to provide an update on the bid results, as well as some of the value engineering cost-saving options and the current status of the project budget.
Bill, if you would, please.
As Mr. Burns mentioned, we rebid. Looks like it's on. The roofing, the hard tile and landscaping, we received 2 to 4 qualified bids in each one of those bid categories. The total of those 3 bids was $73,000 less than when we had unqualified bids and with some change of scope, so it was worth the effort to rebid those 3 categories. So we're recommending awarding the low bidders in those categories. I've spoken with all of them to make sure the scope is all complete. So we're confident that those are all qualified bids. Also, as Mr. Burns mentioned, we are recommending approving the glass and glazing as well as the drywall and metal stud work. We didn't recommend that last time because we were looking at some value engineering suggestions to the envelope of the building. There really wasn't anything that we looked at that was going to add a substantial amount of savings without any compromises to the building. So collectively, those pretty much were rejected. So the low bidders, as they stood, we had qualified bids in both of those categories. So we're, again, as Mr. Burns mentioned, recommending we approve drywall and glass and glazing as well. And then the other category, we had gotten bids for asphalt, actually in our bid package 1, but we were holding off on which bidder to recommend because we had a couple bids. We had 3 bids, but 2 of them were really close, but we had alternates for using concrete in lieu of asphalt at certain areas. We had in the base bid actually was a substantial amount of additional concrete, which I believe was about $130,000. We met and looked at where we could reduce that amount and where was the concrete really required, meeting with the chief and Bill and the architects and the engineers and Ron. And so that was essentially reduced in scope quite a bit. And with that, the second bidder actually ends up being the low bidder. What we had done is we had unit prices on bid day. So when we did this, we would have a set amount of dollars per unit that we could make that judgment. So when that's all said and done, Payne and Dolan ended up the low bidder on the asphalt. So then what we did is we updated the budget. I don't know, Bill, does everyone have copies of this?
It's in the packet, yes.
From the last time.
That's right.
Oh, sure. Does anybody else want one?
I'm fine.
So at this point, the entire project is bid out. There are still some additional value engineering items that we're still reviewing, a handful of those. But if you look at the second page, under the total up at the top in the far left column, that's our updated bid results. At the last meeting, we did talk about, well, I should say first of all, the alternate number 1. This was the net addition
addition, adding concrete to move asphalt, $27,922. We decided to include the fire pole at $39,883. The bifold doors were also approved. That was in the base bid amount, but we had to add for the electrical. The geothermal loop that ran along the property line was also approved at $3,500. Going to a diesel generator, there was a savings of $64,500. And then we found an additional $147,900 in value engineering. So that's a savings of $136,000. So the new subtotal, and we still have the sales tax reduction, contingency, and fee for a new total of $9,543,817.
Are there questions for Bill or for Mr. McGilvery, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not tonight, Bill, but I was wondering if you could provide a breakdown of what your value engineering, what those items ended up being. I just, for curiosity's sake.
We have a sheet that Bill has, so we can forward that on.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, there actually should be a copy of that sheet in the packet. There were 3 items in the packet: the bid results for the new items that were rebid, the value engineering, and then
very
the
good.
project budget.
Well, you don't have to
And-
make me look bad, Bill.
No, I was
That's-
just going
that
to
was
say
good.
that if there are questions, though, we can provide more of an explanation of what some of those items are, since there are some technical terms there. But basically, it lists off everything that was considered, what has been approved, what are some of the items that are still pending. And a couple of the items that are listed as rejected are because the alternate, or there were multiple options. For example, just to look at one of them, with some of the plumbing options, there were different types of materials, and depending on which option was selected, you couldn't get savings from all of those, and there was one that was the most advantageous that was selected. But again, if there are questions, we can provide more detail on those individual items.
Other questions or comments? Questions, comments, potential motions? If we were to make a motion, we could, if we want to handle this as one motion. We think it would be appropriate in the motion, though, to list who the successful vendor is and the dollar amount, but we could handle this all under one motion. Mr. McGilvery?
I'd be prepared to do that then.
Okay.
This time I'll make a motion to award the bids for the fire and EMS facility project for the following items. Roofing and sheet metal, Gary Brown Roofing, $445,000. Glazing aluminum systems, Lake City Glass, $220,151. E&A Enterprises prizes for gypsum board assemblies and installation, $643,844. Hard tile Nons Flooring, $48,474.77. Asphalt paving to Payne and Dolan, $161,995. And landscaping, AL Ltd. Landscaping, $112,299.25.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvery. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Yurs. Anything to add, Mr. McGilvery?
No, sir.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Yurs?
I don't want this comment to be out of order, but at the same time, since our constituent is still here tonight and we are talking about the building, I just want to address his comments real quick. In that I agree. I would love to see the city be able to staff this building as soon as we can. Not only are we spending a great deal of money on this building, but once we do have it staffed, we'll be able to greatly enhance our response times, which will also provide a much stronger fire service here in the city of Verona. So I just didn't want our public comments to go unnoticed tonight, and know that they are heard and understood.
Thank you, Mr. Yurs. Questions or comments on the motion? Questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Bill, thank you very much for your work on that. Next, under old business, we have potential purchase of the Verona Area Community Theater facility at 405 Bruce Street and a lease of property for a new facility. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you. The council had previously discussed this topic back in July, and at that time there was a general consensus to proceed with the concept of looking at the city purchasing the current Verona Area Community Theater facility located at 405 Bruce Street, which would be used by the city's Public Works and Parks Department, as well as working on terms for the lease of property just south of the new fire and EMS facility located on Lincoln Street, where VACT would be interested in constructing a new larger facility that would include a small theater, additional rooms for their use, as well as used by the general community. Following the discussion at the previous council meeting, staff has done additional work on this and met with representatives of the VACT board, and we've put together a draft term sheet for consideration, and I'll walk through some of the key terms of that term sheet and available for discussion this evening. But if there is the interest from the council, potentially we'd be looking for a motion directing staff to proceed with implementing this if there's the support for it based on the key items in the term sheet. So to walk through those key items, first related to the purchase of the current facility, one of the main items that we've discussed is what would be an appropriate purchase price for that building. And it's a difficult building to value. It's unique and it's difficult to find direct comparables in the market. So we looked at a couple different options for valuing that building. We had information provided by VACT from Cleary Building Corporation for the current replacement cost for a similar facility. We looked at what the construction cost was and trying to inflate that forward. We also had the city's commercial appraiser and assessor, Paul Musser, put together an analysis based on looking at a triple net lease rate and backing into a value there. And ultimately, the purchase price that was negotiated reflects a combination of those different methods. The dollar amount would be $360,000 for a purchase price, and staff and at least representatives of the VACT board had reached an agreement that we felt that was a reasonable approach for valuing the building, representing the potential market value of the building as well as the benefit to the city from gaining use of the property, as well as the benefit to the community as a whole for this project moving forward. Also listed on the term sheet, really just for reference, is that we are estimating that there would be about $26,000 of costs for the city to make improvements to the building to make it available for city use. That would include installing a drain system, an overhead door, and other miscellaneous equipment. That really is just there for reference purposes. It would not be part of an agreement between the city and VACT, but it would be an additional cost that we'd be anticipating if we move forward. As far as the timing and the process, as we had discussed previously, we'd be looking at doing a purchase in 2015 following completion of the new facility. However, in order to allow VACT the comfort to know that this project is moving forward and being able to do the fundraising, we'd be looking at approving an agreement in fall of 2014, and a funding mechanism that was suggested was that the city could do an application for a state trust fund loan for this project, and that would avoid the need of waiting and going through our borrowing process for next year, which would not likely be finalized until late spring or summer of next year. And also the state trust fund loan is a good fit for smaller dollar amount projects like this in this dollar range. As far as potential terms for the lease of a new facility, the location again would be south of the fire and EMS facility on Lincoln Street. At the previous meeting, there were some comments and questions related to parking. The site layout has been modified from some of the original designs, ensuring that VACT would have a separate access point. The lots would be connected, but that connection would be located on the western side of the property and farther away from the fire apparatus bays and training area. There certainly would need to be coordination between the city and VACT on how that parking is signed and made available, but that's something that I feel that we can work through. The city would be looking at constructing the parking lot area for this and looking at trying to do that in conjunction with the construction of the rest of the parking in that area with the fire and EMS facilities. I feel there'd be some efficiencies of doing that together. Again, not really part of the agreement with VACT, but just as a reference, we're estimating the cost of that parking area at $46,155, and that's based on a draft layout as well as the cost numbers that are in the specifications and bids from the fire and EMS station project. We also have talked about that the city would agree to maintain and plow that parking area and potentially look at the mowing for that as well. We'd be out in that area anyway, and it'd probably be very easy to just do that all at one time. And then as far as potential terms for a lease agreement, we've agreed in concept to use the current lease for the existing facility as a model. I think there's a lot of language in there that could apply here. We've talked about a longer term for the lease. Our current lease agreement is a 30-year agreement, but given the type of building that's being proposed and the investment in there, a longer term lease is probably more reasonable to tie to the life of the building. We've suggested a 50-year lease agreement. The city would be providing the land at no cost, given the community benefit of the project. We would have language, as with the existing lease, that the tenant would be obligated to construct a facility similar to what has been proposed within a certain time period of approval. And again, we'd want to get some more specifics on the building that would be an attachment to the lease agreement. Conceptually, the use would be defined in the lease agreement, that it would be available for producing and staging performances, related activities. Also have language in there allowing use by the city and community groups. We would want to identify those specifically in the lease, but I think in concept we're on the same page of what types of uses would go in there. Parking would be available in the immediately adjacent parking area. Use of the larger fire and EMS facility parking lot could be coordinated with the city. We would discuss that again in detail in the lease, and we'd also ensure that there'd be no parking in firefighter-only designated stalls, and we'd be looking for cooperation and recognition from the VACT to work with the city to ensure that that does not happen. Building and maintenance and utilities would be the responsibility of the tenant. As with the current agreement, at the end of the lease term, or if the property was abandoned, the city would have the option to take possession of the premises, since it is city property, or to enter into an extension to the lease, and we would use similar language to the current lease agreement, as well as there'd be similar language that the city would consent to mortgage financing for the building as long as there's not a lien placed on the underlying real estate. So again, at this point, this is just kind of an outline, but we'd be looking for questions, comment, or feedback from the council, and then potential direction to proceed.
Mr. Touche?
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. You'd mentioned the city would mow the property. Does that include landscaping the property?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I think we would want to talk in more detail about landscaping specifically. We do have a landscaping plan for the fire station site. I think we'd want to look at what would be appropriate for landscaping in this area, and then we have not talked in detail about maintenance of the landscaping. I think that's a detail that we could work out.
So when you get into the details, I mean, is the intention to have it to be the standards that we're going to keep the fire department, since the two buildings will be so closely related?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I think there is interest from both parties of having a very attractive appearance and landscaping, and there may be even a desire to go further than the city may with landscaping in the area. And as far as maintenance of the parking areas and the grassy areas, we would want to make sure that it's held to the same standard at a minimum at the fire station. So we would work that out in the lease agreement, that either the city's doing that responsibility or that it needs to be maintained appropriately.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Reiki?
I know there's been a lot of discussion about concerns, and I'm personally very much in support of making sure VACT stays here and, you know, is a really integral part of the city. There was just some concerns brought up along the way here about the location being so close to the fire station, and I wondered what has been looked into as far as alternative locations, like the Lincoln Park idea that was brought up, some Dane County land, perhaps by the library or on Verona Avenue. Those were some ideas I had heard. What was found out about those?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, we at a staff level did talk about both of those alternative locations that you had indicated. For the area near the library, the area that was discussed is not currently within the city's urban service area and also does not have utilities extending to there. Both of those would be challenges for doing something at that site. We also had made at least an initial contact with Dane County Parks, and I don't, while they certainly have in the past said that they'd be very willing to work with the city. I think there's some challenges from their vision of that area. At least we kind of got the feeling that would not be the most preferred location for them for this. As far as the area on Lincoln Street that was raised, there are some utilities that are running through that area that would make development with a building a challenge as well. We also have a strong demand for open space and field space within the city, and the loss of that would be a concern. And the other comment I would make is I think that there is an interest in having the facility in a prominent location, and certainly this would be a prominent location, as well as the ability to share parking, whether it be with the fire and EMS facility or with the City Hall parking lot that is located here. I did also have a discussion with Chief Giver about the alternative parking alignment. One of the items that we discussed is that we may want to talk with Police Department about parking on Lincoln Street. If there are a couple driveway entrances, of what you would allow for parking in between those driveway entrances, and just making sure that the layout is done in such a way that you are not encouraging pedestrian traffic where there would be a conflict with vehicles. I think those are items that we can address. So those were some of the main items for the other sites, and I think kind of coming back to it, the feeling of staff and at least the representatives from VACT that I've spoken with is that Lincoln Street near the fire station is the preferred site.
I think just to comment on that, I think one of the things that is really neat in this situation is that we are working with a tenant that we've worked with before, and there's already a relationship there. I'm very confident that if there are any concerns whatsoever, that between the city and VACT, we're going to be able to work them out. So it's not like we're moving into a relationship that's brand new for either one of us. So I'm very confident with the location. Other questions or comments? Mr. Years?
Yeah, I just want to add in my support for VACT and for this building. I think it's a good location for them. It's within easy walking distance, biking distance from most of the schools in the district, which is a good opportunity. And I agree that it should be in a prominent location for the city. It bears our name. It is participants are mainly from our city, so we should offer it a good spot within our city. And also, I think it's invaluable the service that it provides kids. There's a lot of kids who are passionate about the theater, and I think we should do everything we can to encourage students and even adults to find something that they're passionate about. And if they are, we should encourage that and help maintain it. So having said that, I'm in full support of the building and of the Verona Area Community Theater, and hope it continues to thrive.
Thank you, Mr. Years. The one other comment, when Bill was going through his list, and I think he did a very good job, is the one other advantage of going with the state trust fund loan is that, and we've done this in the past with smaller amounts, is that there are no prepayment penalties if it was decided to pay that loan off early, and I think that's a good thing. As far as next steps, I believe that we should move forward with this. We should make a commitment this evening from the city. I think it's important for VACT as they move forward with their fundraising activities, that they know that they have the commitment from the city to move forward. So I would strongly encourage you that we take that action this evening, because I think the timing is of essence to make sure that we can do this in conjunction with the building of the new fire station as well. So Mr. Burns, do you want to talk about what type of action we would be looking for here this evening?
Yeah, I think the potential action would be a motion directing staff to proceed based on the term sheet outline that we've talked through, and proceed with drafting details for the purchase agreement, lease agreement, and to initiate the process of applying for the state trust fund loan.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. McGilvray?
And in that vein, I will at this time make a motion to direct staff to proceed based on the term sheet outline that's been prepared and presented this evening. In that term sheet outline, we have a purchase agreement, lease agreement, and also to initiate the process in applying for the state trust fund loan.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvray, second by Mr. Diaz. Questions or comments on the motion? Mr. Linder?
I just got one question. I know a lot of the new lease agreement information is based on the existing agreement. Did we pay for their parking lot the first time around as well?
Mr. Burns?
I don't believe that the city did pay for the parking lot. I'm just looking for Ron to confirm, is that?
Mr. Reader, if you would, please.
I think a portion of the parking lot was paved when we built Pump Station 17, and then they added additional spaces when they built their facility. So a portion of the lot was constructed when we built Pump Station 17.
Okay, they handle most of their stuff on their own?
Correct.
Of their parking lot?
Correct.
And if I may just provide a little bit additional explanation, part of the thought why it may make sense for the city to do the parking is that it could be designed and constructed in conjunction with the adjacent lot. And I think the hope is that there would be shared parking in both directions, that both potentially VACT could use the city lot for certain events when it's a number of the stalls would not be in use, but also when there would be a need for additional parking related to the fire and EMS station or other city events, and there's not a conflict with VACT, that there'd be ability to use that lot. So I think that there is potential for shared parking in both directions, and for both the efficiency in laying out, constructing the lot, and the shared use, it makes sense to have the city involved with the construction of the lot in this case.
I would completely agree with that. Mr. Linder?
I guess that's the one point I'm struggling with. I'm full support of the VACT. I mentioned that earlier. I'm struggling with the 46,000. I know you said that you know there's some the issues there, but why? I guess I'm wondering why it just couldn't be designed together when they build it when their building is ready. I guess that's where I'm hung up. Why that can't just be the solution? Why do we have to build it as well?
And certainly that could be, if that's what the committee decided, if the council decided to do that. The city certainly has that prerogative. I would not suggest that we do that. Again, I think it goes back to the relationship that the city has had now for several years with VACT, the fact that we're looking at shared parking and shared use, and also the fact that it's our intent to maintain that property. So I would strongly encourage us to leave that portion, that piece in the equation. Other questions, Mr. McGilvray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to add to that, I just think when you're constructing it, it makes more sense to have that product all be part of one piece rather than try to cut it off there and then start it in and tie it back together. Just makes more sense to me to do it all at once. I'm sure mobilization costs might not be a lot, but you probably have some savings there too, trying to mobilize two contractors to it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there more questions or comments? Mr. McGilvray?
So I do have a couple of comments. I just want to say I'm excited we've got to this point. I appreciate the VCT's patience to this point also. You guys have done a great job and you're to be commended for that. Thank you very much to the staff. I know you guys have put some time into making this happen. Mr. Reader, Bill, thanks again for everything you've done, and I'm hopeful that this is the start of their ability to really get going on the fundraising, and with any luck within that 18-month period that we so clearly have defined here in the language, we have a building. So that's great news. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. McGilvray. Other comments, questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Okay.
The motion carries, and we have, was it Mr. Steiner and Mr. Linder? Voting no. Motion carries 6-2. We look forward to continuing working with you and getting the project moving, so thank you. We are on new business now. Ms. Schofield, do we have any operator licenses this evening?
We have two for approval this evening from Stephen Moore at Gray's Tide House and Mark Largent at Vincenzo BP.
Do we have a motion for approval of the operators' licenses?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche, seconded by Mr. Yurs. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the approval of operator licenses signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Do we have any announcements this evening? Mr. Steiner?
Thanks, Mayor. School starting after Labor Day, so that means we'll start having crossing guards at various points around the city. Our police department is recruiting and training those crossing guards as we speak, and they will be practicing and going out. You'll see them in orange vests out and about the city. Please be aware of that. Anywhere where there's a school crossing, well marked on the pavement. It's a very tenuous time when school starts because some of these young children are changing schools and they're excited. They're going to a different school. They may not know all the rules about getting across our busy roads. We're very lucky to have such dedicated crossing guards who do their very best to make it as safe as possible. But I would like to have the public know that please be aware that if you're using these roads right after Labor Day, school starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Mr. Yours?
Yeah, on September 8th, it's a Monday, from 1 to 7 p.m., the Verona Public Library will be hosting the 9/11 Never Forget exhibit. I encourage all of you to go out and see it. It's an honor to have it come to Verona. And also, if you'd be willing to help in any way, please give me some contact, and I'll put you in contact with Trudy from the Verona Public Library. They may need some assistance.
Thank you. Other comments? Or announcements, I should say? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order. We have a motion by Mr. Yurs. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Doyle. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.